Okay. Good mid-morning. I worked at Edmunds as St. Pete for 14 years as part of our base Scallop monitoring program. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we do and then kind of a focus on Pine Island with a little bit of what we figured out, if I can even say that, for base Scallop restoration. So just in case you don't know, there's a lot of bivalves out there. They all kind of look the same to people that aren't shellfish people. So base scallops, they are bivalves, so they're going to have two shells. Generally, one is going to be dark brown, and the bottom is going to be white. Everyone's probably going to go all orange or yellow, like this guy up here. But generally, they're going to be brown and white. The easiest way to tell that you have a base scallop versus a clam or something else is to look for the blue eyes, which they have about 40 to 50 lining the mantle tissue along each shell, so the top and bottom shell both have eyes. So that's the easiest way to tell. Even when the shells are shut, you can kind of still turn it sideways and see the eyes. They have a large adductor muscle that they can contract rapidly and they can swim. So that's the second easiest way to kind of tell that if you go to grab it, it swims away from you. They generally, it takes a lot of energy to do that motion, so they generally only do it in short bursts. So they don't really migrate. They can move around in their environment, and if they get up in the waterfall and the current's driven, then it can take them a little bit farther away. But they generally don't migrate. They use that technique to mostly get away from predators, crabs, or octopus, or starfish. Their eyes are basic photoreceptors, so they're going to see shadow getting closer to them, and that's going to trigger that technique to swim away. Like I said, they generally remain close to where they settle. Once they're juvenile, they stay kind of within a small area for their whole life. They prefer seagrass habitats, so in Florida, that's generally going to be Alaska, Serengeti, or Haleduli, or a mix of the three. Every once in a while, you'll find them in soft bottom or hard bottom habitats, but generally it's going to be right beside a seagrass bed, and they kind of just swim out for a little bit. The maximum shell height for the species is 3.5 inches. Based on our fall data, which is about when they're adults, our average shell height that we see is 2.4 inches, so about 60 millimeters. So a 3.5-inch scallop would be a really big scallop. They range from New England, like Massachusetts, all the way down through Mexico and Central America. There's been 3 acknowledged subspecies, which I've kind of shaded where the subspecies are found. This isn't exact, but it kind of gives you an idea. Radians within the New England, the northeast coast. Radians constrictus is in North Carolina, and then the eastern Gulf, and then Amplistatus is in the western Gulf. So you have these 3 species, or 3 subspecies. And in Florida, we pretty much only see the constrictus, and there's going to be just 3 little populations that are linked real close to seagrass habitats. So there's some in Florida Bay, along the southwest coast from Pine Island down to Tampa Bay, along the nature coast from Clearwater up to Crystal River, the Big Bend from Cedar Key up to Alligator Harbor area, and then the Panhandle with St. Joe Bay, St. Andrew Bay, and Pensacola Bay. It kind of depends from year to year where, like, which populations are the biggest, but generally the core population, and as defined by Dr. Terry Bird with her genetic study, it is in the Big Bend area around Stantec, and then to some degree the northern nature coast, Crystal River area. The big scallops in Florida generally live only 12 months, so a year. Up north in New England, that subspecies can live 1.5 to 2 years, but their waters are a lot colder. So in Florida, it's generally just 1 year. The adults, they reach adult size, which is generally 2 inches. So at about a shell height, which is an inch to the upper edge of 2 inches, your game is going to be fully developed and they're going to be adults. That generally takes place or has occurred by late summer or August. And they spawn in the fall, so they're spawning generally late August through October, and that spawning window shifts depending on the environmental conditions. So when the water temperature decreases rapidly in release gametes into the water, and those gametes went over from a fertilized egg through all the way up. They'll develop, it'll be free-swimming, ciliated larvae, and then they'll develop a shell, and then they'll develop a foot. And once they develop that foot, then they're going to start looking for suitable habitats to settle on, which they prefer seagrass. So they're going to use little viscera and attach the seagrass blades, and that's where they'll stay for a few months until they're big enough to draw off to the seafloor. So since they have that planktonic stage, dispersion of those larvae is really reliant upon wind and water movements. So on a normal average year, they're probably not going to go very far, but if they happen to be spawning and there's a hurricane that comes through right after it, they can end up miles and miles away from where they started. So Florida had a commercial fishery that I have data from as early as 1925 from a paper Rudock wrote. And he actually even had, in the 1950s, it broken down by county, so you could see what Lee County was contributing to the statewide total, which in some years was 50%, in some years it was closer to all of it. So the majority of the bay scallops were landed in Lee County and then up in the Panhandle in Bay County, although those probably come out of St. Joe Bay, which is in Gulf County. So you can kind of see over time it peaked in 1958 and then it just started dropping. And then I don't have data for Lee County, I don't have county by county data after 1965. So it is possible that some of those bars in the late 60s and through the 1994 came out of Lee County, but basically in Murdoch paper in 1964 and 1965 there were no scallops landed in Lee County, so it kind of dried up there. The rest of the data that came from the NIST online data that you can go search and have scallop landings from 1950 through 1994, which is when the state stepped in and closed that fishery. So at kind of the peak year, statewide was about 40 million scallops landed, and the peak for Lee County is about 20 million. We don't know what area those fishermen were actually fishing, and there's still a lot of scallops coming out of a relatively small area. So currently, like I said, there's no commercial harvest that was closed in 1994. There is a recreational harvest, but that's limited. It requires that you have a fishing license. The season is set currently at July 1st through September 24th, but it seems like every year the governor opens up a couple days early. So I want to say it's set at that, but I'm not sure in a couple months they're going to put it up early. So there's a daily bag limit of 2-gallon whole scallops or a pint of shucked meats, and then there's also a vessel limit of 10-gallon whole or half shucked meats. The harvest area is limited to the Pasco line all the way up to the Mexico Beach Canal, so in state waters, which is about 9 miles offshore. If you get out of the seagrass, you're probably not going to find them. So you want to pick areas that are thick seagrasses, and then harvest is only allowed by hand. You're not allowed to use any kind of mechanical gear to like that. So with the onset of the commercial fishery closing, the state was awarded funds to study bay scallops. Where are they? What are the threats to them? So the project actually started in 1991, but it was focused on this area right here in the Citrus County area. So starting in 1994, more funds were awarded, so the program expanded. And since 1994, 6 sites have been studied every year for annual bonus, so in summer. So St. Andrew Bay and Stantec. So Stantec, Crystal River, Monasota, Anglo, and then Pine Island Sound. So we included Pine Island Sound just because of that historic fishery. Monthly sampling for juveniles has been conducted since 1997. For back when the project started in 92 and 94, they did do some juvenile sampling, but it was really only through the winter months during the periods of no spawning. So that So we have 15 years basically of monthly recruitment and sampling. Since that time, we've added other sites, and again, it's monthly sampling. So Pine Island had a 10-year data set, and San Bay, we now have about a 10-year data set. The restoration efforts that the state, the FWC, has conducted have been episodic, and they've been dependent upon grants. So most of them are focused on areas where there was a fishery that there weren't scallops anymore. So most of them have focused along this nature coast. And Tampa Bay and Sarasota Bay and Highlands, with a few of the St. Andrew Bay. And I've listed the years. You can see most of the restoration was occurring in the early 2000s. We've since kind of stopped doing restoration just because money for us dried up. We were awarded as part of the oil spill restoration a 10-year effort to restore scallops in the Panhandle. So that will probably be coming online sometime this year, hopefully, but we'll see. So just to give you a quick rundown on how we measure adult abundance, we do 10 sites in the summer, and at each of those sites we do up to 20 stations. Most sites have 20 stations, and at each of the stations we'll lay out a 300-meter transit line, and we'll put the 2 divers in the water, one on either side, and they will measure 1 meter out from that transect. So you get an area covered 600 meters squared times 20 stations times 10 sites. So it's a lot of swimming. And then each diver will measure the first 15 shell heights that they come across, and that kind of gives us an idea of the size distribution from site to site, from year to year. So we can kind of look at a little bit more long-term trends. Juvenile recruitment, those stations they kind of fluctuate how many we do per site. Currently we're doing about 12 stations at each of our sites. And those consist of basically just a citrus bag, he's holding. We're stuffed with a piece of black Nexar plastic, and it's anchored to a block and thrown overboard, and about 6 feet of water either in or near the seagrass bed along the coast. We leave the traps out for 8 weeks, but there's a second set that's offset by about 4 weeks, and that kind of overlapping deployment period hopefully lets us be able to visually detect any scallops that might have just landed on the trap when the day before it was full. They're really small, and so having them out for at least 4 weeks, they're generally big enough for us to detect them. And then once we process the trap, we get how many scallops that were attached to it, and we divide that by the number of days that trap was in the water, and that way we can standardize. If we weren't able to get out of the trap without 100 days, there might be potential to have more scallops on it just because it's that longer. So that allows us to standardize our data. And then our restoration methods just kind of vary depending on what the grant called for. Initially, we started with hatchery-raised individuals to about quarter size that we planted in cages underwater, and that we would go every 3 weeks and maintain food over the cage. We would get a count of how many were left alive, and we would measure shell heights. So a lot of our early restoration work was that method, but it was extremely expensive, and the fact that it was labor intensive, and then you also had to have the hatchery willing to grow the scallops to quarter size, which for them was very expensive because of the food requirement. So after those projects ended, we kind of switched to releasing larvae that hatchery again raised for us, but right to that ready to set stage. So remember I said they're larvae for about 10, 14 days. So right at about day 10, the hatchery would give us the larvae, and we would go and release them into enclosures like this one, bottom right. And so hopefully those larvae would survive, and they would attach to the seagrass within that enclosure, and then they grow and then stay within that footprint. We wouldn't leave the enclosures, we would pull them after a couple of days. Hopefully that was enough time to allow the larvae to settle and attach. Again, those funding sources kind of dried up, so we switched to trying to catch spat on our collectors during the peak period, and then grow those ourselves on our dock and just free release them. So we tried a multitude of things. I'm not really going to talk about the dock typical cages because of Lady Judy is going to cover that a little bit later. So now that I've given you an overview of kind of what we do statewide, I'm going to take a closer look at kind of this map didn't really come out, but it's supposed to show you all of the sites that we currently either study for adult bonus or recruitment monitoring. You can still kind of see the green where we're currently working. So historically, all of our survey stations were launched up here around Pine. When we started getting more funding and doing more restoration efforts, we expanded that to this other end. So likewise, our recruitment monitoring has shifted from just being bunched up in Pine Island to extending down towards Sandoval. And currently, we don't pull our traps. We have staff at state level FTO who report us each month, and then they ship them to us and we process them. Restoration efforts originally were up near Pine Island and kind of slowly over time branched out into other areas of the sound. Just looking at the numbers, all of our efforts in Pine Island were large releases. We didn't do the underwater cages in Pine Island. So the first two releases were larval releases into the enclosure. Since that time, everything else has pretty much just been a free release of larvae or juvenile, or in some cases adults, right into the estuary. So how can you tell if it's successful? One, you want to look at, are there more adults? Are there more in the area? Are there a wider spread of scallops? And then also you want to look at, are there more juveniles? Do you get a higher number on collectors? And then also, are there either more collectors with spat or more months of the year where you get spat? So here's Pine Island response. Restoration, luckily, for us started right about the 10-year of our 20-year data set. So you can kind of see this nice flat line and then peaks finally showing up on the adult abundance. And then similar, we don't have any restoration or recruitment monitoring or restoration began, but it mirrors what the adult abundance did. And this bottom graph is just to show you that we have to treat sites differently. So for Pine Island Sound, generally there's no spat observed in September. So we set our scallop year as October through September. But you can kind of see that since restoration started, abundance and recruitment has gone up. 2007 and 2013 were red high, which kind of explains why those went back down to zero. So were these efforts a success? We can say with some certainty that the initial one, this 2005 peak, was due to restoration. Both the abundance and recruitment went up during that time. However, the rest of the years is a little bit more uncertain to say were these efforts as a direct result of restoration. During that same time, all the other sites statewide were kind of recovering from a bad year. In 2004, it was a hurricane year, lots of fresh water, they killed them all. And then the other sites exhibited the same upward trend as Pine Island Sound, and the state is being the highest in 2011. So, and then when you look at recruitment rates for Pine Island, they're still, even though they went up, they're still exponentially lower than the rest of the sites that we monitor. But the take home is that the density did get very high 2 times in the last 10 years. So I was going to show you this real quick, but I'll probably skip this because I'm running a long time. But basically, we've seen similar things in other sites, and we kind of look at the abundance to say, was it a success, was it not? So is it possible to design a perfect experiment? You kind of have to look at several factors for base scallops in the over 1 year. So one was the historic population, and along with that, can your current sound or body of water support scallops now? They're extremely sensitive to water quality, so red tide, if you kind of have them or kill them. If you have too much fresh water, it will kill them. If you have a reduced amount or reduced quality of seagrass, then that could affect them. Or if the ground is too silty and it gets stirred up too much, then it can affect them. Predation, hydrodynamics, harvest, there's poaching that does occur. All of those things can kind of hinder your project. So you can set reasonable goals. We know this is my target density. You want to see more stations with scallops, and it went from 30% to 95%, and then you want to have stations with large density, so kind of like little smaller patches. So in that same 2005 area, you had 30% of the station had 100 more scallops, which is a lot. And then recruitment's a little bit harder. The highest recruitment was 0.03 scallops per day, so maybe to compare to the rest of the state, we want to set a target at 1 per day. And then peak rates, which are in the winter, should be double what your annual rate is. And then hopefully you can compensate for negative factors. Don't release the right high. It's like don't spit it in the wind, but don't do it. Try to offer the protection to avoid predators, cages, enclosures. Increasing public awareness can only help by reducing poaching or giving ownership. And then you have to do some sort of pre-emphasis assessment to eliminate those uncertainties that, well, it could just been a natural comeback. No, our assessment, there's nothing to report out, there is. And then hopefully those assessments might help lead to additional funding. And then repetition is the key. You kind of, even though they have a little year, you kind of want to step back and look at a longer-term picture, which for us, the 2 years at the time is kind of a little bit more telling. A lot of partners that we worked with over time, thank you. And then questions.
You said you had, they can't tolerate salinity less than 15 PSU?
For extended periods. So down south by the Calusa, when you have a water release, that's probably going to drop the salinity too much, and so that's probably why you don't have real abundant populations in the southern end of the sound. If you don't experience as much in Pine Island, but we just had all those tropical storms in the past 2 years, pretty much wiped out the St. Marks, the Steenhatchee, the St. Joe, and the St. Andrew Bay populations. It's just too much runoff, too much fresh water too quickly, and it's non-stop, so it kind of just, it wipes them out. So they can't handle it.
Right, so what is the time frame when you say extended period, how many days?
Honestly, 1 day could be too much. It depends on if it drops from 28 to like 5 for 24 hours. That can be enough. It kind of depends on what the drop in salinity actually is.
We're going to, while you do, continue this discussion at break, okay?
Okay, she answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.